welcome back to this Let's Play of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. Last time we blew up the fuel containment system to get by, and that's probably going to have some outcomes that are inadvisable. We also found the corpse of the maintenance officer and a very living droid. And this droid, we know from the prologue, was involved with our T3 unit. That's a little bit of, out-of-character information. Let's ask him about this body lying here.
Answer. That is all that remains of the maintenance officer, Master. At the end, he was quite incoherent from the pain, and attempts to facilitate communications with him proved useless. I heard his dying screams as the droids he tended turned on him, mining him like a piece of asteroid rock.
Okay, did he say anything?
Recitation. Oh yes, Master. The record of his last moments were...
5 droids, burning through the outer door. They're forcing their way into the bay. Please, someone that... Oh no, they're through! Oh, my leg! They're burning through my leg! Oh, stop, please!
Addendum. His remaining attempts at communication are variations in decibel, Master, ranging from frenzied screams to gibbering inarticulate attempts to beg for his life.
Well, isn't this droid a nice individual? Let's leave him alone for now. We got some other things we've got to do in this area first. Now that we have finished with that conversation, we are going to loot his corpse, because he does have a lot of money in his pockets. There's also just some broken droids around here with some components I can pick up. Nothing real important, but... Oh, by the way, you can also store items in containers. There's not any actual reason to do so. It's a function that was used once in the first game, but... There's this item here which is a sonic imprint sensor, which sounds fancy, but it's basically a tape recorder. And we're going to need that to deal with a little problem we have in a second here. Right here is a workbench. I'm actually going to use some of this off screen, and I'll explain what I did when I'm done. The short version of the workbench is that you can use it to make a variety of items. In this case, I don't really have very many skills, so I can't make a lot. All of these items have skill requirements, and you'll see they're here listed in red. Repair 6. I currently have my repair 6. It requires repair 11 to make a scout enforcer pistol. What I've done is I've made a couple of basic longswords. They're not super important as far as being great weapons, but they are better than the weapon I've got, and you can upgrade them. And I found a couple upgrades earlier, including a basic ionite edge, which I can't make, but I can still use. And you can also create grips, and all of the items in the game, all the weapons in the game, sorry, have 3 upgrade slots, which you can put a variety of things in, including lightsabers. And this is part of what makes lightsabers really, really disgusting in this game, is that you can add additional damage to them, and really sort of crank up their ability to destroy things. It also makes pistols a lot more powerful, because all these, Mandalorian chamber, bonus damage, it adds 1 to 4 damage. This is just the most basic kind. All of that adds, regardless of the base damage of the weapons. So you can take a 1 to 4 damage pistol and turn it into a, 10 to 30 damage pistol, and it really doesn't matter what the base item is. Really, the only thing that matters for the base damage is what the damage type is. So we'll run into some disruptor weapons later, and those are better than normal pistols because they'll go through a lot of shields. The same thing works with armor. Armor has both overlays and underlays. The uniform I'm wearing is somewhat limited in that it can only have underlays. It's considered a robe for the game's purposes. And so you can put biorestorative underlay in it, but you can't put an armor weave underlay in it. Some of the underlays are also further restricted, like these heavy bonded plates only work in heavy armor. Some of it is useful, some of it is not. In fact, a lot of the armor upgrades in particular are pretty crappy. But it's sort of a question of what you have the skills to make, and I don't have very much at this point, but we'll make a lot more use of this later. For now, I'm just making some very basic equipment, and then you can go into the upgrade items screen here, and it shows you essentially which one you have. And for the longsword, I can upgrade it, and I can put a grip in there. That's actually not the grip I'm going to use. But you have all that together, and you have a better weapon. Not a great weapon, but a better weapon. So we'll have to sort of make do with that. All of the things you make at a workbench require components, and you get components, sometimes you just find components, but mostly you get components by breaking down items. And the percent of components you get from breaking down, I believe, is essentially your repair skill times 5% of the sort of component value of the item. For created items, the component value is really obvious. It's whatever it costs to make it. So when you start making things, once you have 20 repair skill, you can just break them down and sort of remake them all you like. You can't make every item in the game, obviously. So there are some things where you don't want to break them down because there's no way to replace them. But most of the, in fact, better equipment in the game, other than lightsabers, is made rather than found. There are a couple items that are important. You can't make armor, for example, and you can't make some of the better blaster pistols. But for the most part, a lot of the gear I use in the game will be things that I made. They're predictable, unlike the loot drops, which are not. Some items, like these data pads, you can break down for a single component. It's worth noting that things like mines and med packs and such are breakdown for chemicals rather than for components. So to a certain extent, I'm going to sell those first rather than selling the component type items, because, well, it's there's not really all that much you can make with chemicals unless you really like the grenades, which I don't. So we'll have to deal with that. Let's go talk to our droid friend over here. And he hails us.
It is a pleasure to see you intact, Master. How may I be of assistance?
Now that we have the sonic imprint sensor, we can do this particular conversation here. And we're looking for a way into the Paragus hangar bay.
Pitying answer. Oh, that is unfortunate, Master. The hangar is sealed behind a containment field. It would be impossible to open it.
Okay, well, there's an override code.
Answer. Only the Paragus administration officer would have such codes, Master. If he hasn't already been murdered in an unfortunate accident, then he is trapped in the dormitory section, which has been effectively cut off from the facility by explosives.
He seems to know a lot about what's going on. I wonder. Anyway, is there another way to reach the dormitory?
Theory. You could walk across the surface of the asteroid to the dormitory airlock, but such a route would be extremely hazardous, and I do not wish to see you damaged.
For a communications droid, he chooses some interesting turns of phrase. I wonder how effective he is as communications. Anyway, we can choose the obvious light side answer here. The miners could be hurt or in danger.
Warning. Master, continued exploration of this facility may place you in unnecessary danger. I encourage you to return to the medical bay and wait for retrieval from a vessel that is no doubt on the way, even as we continue this pointless conversation.
Okay. Well, I'm the organic, you're the technology, you are going to obey me.
Weary resignation. Very well, Master, but there is very little that I can do. You see, the airlock is sealed by a code.
Alright, so how do we get the code?
Correction. Oh, I already possess the code, Master, but I am afraid that it will do you no good.
Okay, well, again, I organic, you machine.
Condescending explanation. Master, the console governing the droid maintenance area and the airlock is voice-printed music. In the last days of his life, the maintenance officer was quite careful about voice protocols, bordering on paranoid obsession. Conjecture. I suspect once he realized something was wrong in the facility, he voice-locked the droid bay functions. A prudent measure, but in the end, he met the same fate as the rest of the organics.
Alright, but you do know the code.
Condescending explanation. Oh yes, Master. The code is maintenance control, voice print ID R1B5. But unless the maintenance officer speaks the code, it is useless.
Okay, now, there are two ways to do this quest. There's an easy way and a hard way. Actually, there's a stupid way too, but we'll get to that. The easy way is to just use Persuade skill, which we're about to do, and have him speak the code. The hard way is to go and, using the sonic imprint sensor, pick up the various pieces of that code from the other things that the maintenance officer says. We have a recording of him here, because this guy will gleefully play back his dying words. We have a recording back up on the administration level, which, includes some dialogue with the maintenance officer. So if you've seen the movie Sneakers, you understand the principle, where essentially you take the various pieces of the recording and splice them together to get a code. But anyway, we can ask him, you can mimic voices, can you speak the code?
Objection. Master, to commit such an act would be in violation of the ethics programming most droids are believed to possess. I am afraid there is nothing that can be done.
Okay, and then we can just use a little persuade here to, essentially provoke him into saying it.
Irritated objection. Master, there is nothing wrong with my communications functionality. I will prove it. A recitation.
Maintenance control, voice print ID R1B5.
There. Was that sufficient, Master?
Yep, it was. Sucker. Unfortunately, that gets us some dark side points and some light side points for that conversation, so we end up with, a no net movement. There's probably a way to do that conversation without getting dark side points, but I'm not going to bother going back through it to avoid it. There are a lot of light side points in the game. Anyway, I'm going to cut this video off here. We'll continue next time.